Shalom, friends. We're here in the second of our 10 shiurim on what Neo-Hasidism is. Last week I introduced the subject. This week I'm going to talk about what we mean by God, how we relate to the question of God in Neo-Hasidism. Of course, that's the question. Hasidism is a very theocentric form of Judaism. It's not just about the Jewish people. It's not about Zionism or the land of Israel. It is about a person's relationship to the divine. I've been thinking about this since I was 20 years old, and a conversation I had then with Reb Zalman Schachter, who was really the creator of Neo-Hasidism in the late 20th century, you might say, or the recreator of it. An early conversation, he said to me, speaking in Yiddish, we spoke half in English, half in Yiddish, I think. He said, Yiddishkeit is a derech and avoide. The sentence stuck with me for all these years. Judaism is a way of service, is a pathway in serving. It's about a life of service. Service to whom? Well, a derech and avoide was really a shortcut for saying one of two things in Yiddish. A derech and avodas Hashem, it's a way of serving Yud He Vav He, the name of God, God's name. Or it's a way of saying, you would say, a derech and avodas haboire, a way of serving the Creator. And I want to talk about both of those, serving Yud He Vav He and the Creator. Yud He Vav He is so often rendered into English as God or the Lord, and they're completely wrong. That word Lord is there because the Septuagint translation of the Torah into Greek in the 2nd century before the Common Era translated the word Yud He Vav He as Adonai, which means Lord. But that's not what it means. Yud He Vav He is an impossible conflation of the verb to be. It's Haya, Hoveh, Yihye, all smushed together, a moving verb smushed together into a noun that doesn't exist. Yud He Vav He should really be translated is, was, will be. Is, was, will be. It's Haya, Hoveh, Yihye, all together, made into an artificial noun because you can't capture Yud He Vav He in a box and say, in a nominal box, and say, I've got it. Yud He Vav He is always in movement. It's a dynamic, not a static entity. It's the flow of being. The flow of being is what Yud He Vav He is. It's that which is, was, will be, all in the same moment because it's eternal and unchanging, and yet changing constantly at the same time. That's avodas Yud He Vav He, avodas Hashem, is devotion to that, is devotion to that moving, dynamic entity of being. And avodas haboire, serving the Creator. What's the Creator? Well, I want to turn to answer that to one of the great classics of Hasidism, the Kedushas Levi, the book by Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, one of the most famous and beloved figures in the whole history of Hasidism. His book opens this way. On the verse, in the beginning God created, by the way, I have the book in front of me in its first complete edition in Berditchev in 1816. So you know I'm reading from the real text. He says this. Haklal, the main thing to remember is Haboire, Hu bara hakol vehu hakol. God creates everything, God created everything, and God is everything. God is everything, vehu hakol. So this is not really creation in the usual sense. You think, I create something, I'm an artist and I create a painting. I'm over here, the painting's over there, they're separate things. Once it's created, it's separate from me. But no, God is constantly creating. The one is constantly creating. This means to say creation is an ongoing process, never ending. So it's really not creation, it's really what's called emanation. In Hebrew, there's a wonderful word for it, hitlabshut. Hitlabshut, getting dressed, putting on a garment. Malbush is a garment. Hitlabshut is putting on a garment. So God is mitlabesh in the world. The one dresses itself in the coat of many colors called existence. Somehow the one, that one which always was, on this particular planet decided to enter into this process called evolution, which is exactly the coat of many colors, constantly changing, constantly taking on new forms, constantly being renewed. That's the creation process that has never ceased. And now I'm going to go on and read a little bit more of Levi Yitzchak. He says, Ki b'chol rega mashpia shefa livruav, because in every moment that one is flowing into its creatures. U'lechol ha'olamot hechalot v'malachim, flowing into all the worlds, all the palaces of the universe, all the angels. That's why we say, Yotzer or uvorei choshech. That's why we say he creates light and brings about darkness rather than he created light, because he's creating it every moment, over and over again. So that creative process is ongoing. And that relationship between creator and creature is not one of separation, but one of constant flow. Philosophically, I'm a monist. I believe that there is only one. Not that there's one God, that's monotheism, but there is only one. So let me say what I don't believe God is. God is not some old fellow in the sky. Heaven does not mean the sky. It means a different way of thinking, a different layer of perception. That one is in the heaven that lives inside your heart. That one is ever flowing into us. That one can also be called chiyut, the life energy, the vitality that's ever flowing into existence to make existence happen. And existence is happening over and over again in every moment. That's the definition of what we mean by the divine process, or God, or Yud He Vav He, or Haborei, the creator, in Neo-Hasidism. What's the difference here between the old Hasidism and the Neo? How are we not Hasidism as it was? Classical Judaism was always a cumulative tradition. Yes, you added a new belief, but you added it on top of the old one. So you believed in the biblical God, you believed in the rabbinic God, you believed in the philosophical God, you believed in all of them. Of course, you never replaced anything. But for us, I think this kind of thinking about God, this oneness of being, Yud He Vav He is the oneness of being. Yud He Vav He is the universe. Yud He Vav He is all that exists seen from a unitive point of view, viewed as one. That replaces the kinds of theologies we can no longer believe in. We left the old fellow in the sky behind when we were adolescents, probably, or even earlier. And we never replaced that with a more sophisticated thinking about what we mean by religion and spirituality. Something very different. That's why I call Neo-Hasidism a Judaism for seekers, a Judaism for monists. It preserves all the traditional forms of Judaism as much as you want, of Jewish practice and Jewish symbolic expression and Jewish language. And yet really it's an entirely different approach to what it means to be a religious human being and to what it means to have faith. Come back and join us next week where we're going to turn to the human being, Torah Adam. What does it mean to be a human being from the Neo-Hasidic point of view? Shalom, see you then.